Coming up a little bit later this week, we hope to have the No on 3 people, the anti-drug people, the people opposed to the legalization of recreational marijuana. It is Amendment 3 on your ballot in November. Right now, we're going to have the Yes on 3 people. We're joined by Morgan Hill, campaign manager for Safe and Smart Florida. You could follow them on X at Smart and Safe FL. Morgan, appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
As if things weren't already going well for the Yes on 3 campaign, the effort to legalize recreational marijuana, nearly all of the polling shows Amendment 3 getting more than 60% support to pass. And now arguably the only endorsement that really matters to a lot of Floridians, former President Trump not coming out and officially endorsing Amendment 3, but he came as close as he ever does to really endorsing anything. He does seem to be a yes on 3.
Yeah, that's right. We saw that post on Truth Social over the weekend. I think it is great that we have President Trump's support, but we are also talking to, elected officials across the state of Florida. So yes, the former president's endorsement is fantastic and deeply important in the state. But we're not ruling out anyone of our Democratic senators or mayors. We've got a lot of support from groups across the state. So we're really excited about the bipartisan support we've seen come in.
Most of the attention against it has been from Governor DeSantis saying it's going to smell up the state, that we're family friendly, et cetera. This is going to hurt us. But there is bipartisan support in the legislature and some of our leaders. We've repeatedly discussed this on the show, Morgan. I'm not a pot smoker, but I'm strongly leaning towards yes on the issue, Amendment 3. So let me play devil's advocate here, and you try and convince me. I'm going to give you some of the arguments against legalizing pot, and you give me your responses why the arguments don't hold water. Fair?
Fair enough.
All right. The number one argument is that we need to stop putting people in jail or prison for simple pot possession. I read an op-ed last week by Ricky Dixon, Florida's Secretary of Corrections. He says this is a false argument because nobody in Florida is being thrown in prison for simple possession.
Yeah, so look, I mean, there are op-eds that have come out since then talking about the number of people. I think it's somewhere close to 7,000 who have been arrested in the last year for simple marijuana possessions. And whether you are thrown into, state prison or you are arrested with a simple charge, you're in the criminal justice system. And that makes it harder to get a job. It makes it harder to get an education. And ultimately, really, it makes it harder for Floridians to get ahead. If we remove that burden, I think we'll see both Floridians able to make simple choices like they make right now about alcohol, for instance, without the concern that they might end up with a criminal record. I think we also have to think about the burden that this places on the criminal justice system and our law enforcement officers as well. Our law enforcement officers are having to make those decisions right now. They are having to go after people for possession of marijuana. And if they're able to, to go after serious crimes rather than focusing on marijuana possession, I think that's a much better use of their resources, and I think you'll hear that from them as well.
Yeah, he says, Ricky Dixon did in his op-ed, that there are currently only 37 individuals in a Florida prison convicted of just simple pot possession. He says everybody else that's in there, usually in there because they're career criminals or they were associated with other drugs as well, other than just marijuana. One of the other arguments against Amendment 3 is that it's already so easy to get a medicinal marijuana card. Why do we need to legalize it for recreational use?
Well, look, I think we've seen states across the country have both programs, right? I think we're seeing the federal government move away from decades of putting a stigma around marijuana use. More Americans right now say that they are using marijuana on a daily basis than say they are drinking alcohol. And I think that if we are able to give Floridians the access to safe, tested products, not just within the medical market,
Yeah.
that we make a safer Florida, right? It also generates a lot of tax revenue for the state. I mean, independent economists have projected it could be almost 500,000 or 500 million, excuse me, dollars a year,
Hmm.
where that's money that right now is being spent on the illicit market. And when we are able to create a legal market here in Florida, we can then push funding to our police officers, to our schools, to other programs. So I think it's just a win-win for the state.
We have Morgan Hill on the line. She's campaign manager for Smart and Safe Florida. They are the pro recreational marijuana people. Amendment 3 on November's ballot. We are working to get the anti-recreational marijuana people on the show. They're not, for some reason, not as willing to come on to talk about all of these things. But I'm kind of playing a devil's advocate game with Morgan here and stating the reasons why it's not a good idea to pass Amendment 3. Legalizing it doesn't add anything to our state or society. Morgan, is one of the other arguments. It only creates more dangerous roads by having more people driving under the influence. Why does that not hold water?
Look, I think our law enforcement officers right now are able to make sure that people are not driving under the influence of any substance. Smart and Safe Florida does not think that anyone should be driving under the influence of any substance. And we are, more than happy to work with our state legislators and our law enforcement officers on any program that they see fit to make sure that law enforcement has the resources that they need. But I mean, you'll hear from law enforcement officers right now that they're already doing this. They know how to test to make sure folks are not under the influence. And so I'm not sure that it will actually create that much of an issue.
A couple more things, and this one we hear a lot, right? The big money behind the campaign is Trulieve, the one that owns the medical marijuana dispensaries across the state. Also, the biggest name, arguably, behind this effort in the state is John Morgan, right? One of the largest, one of the top personal injury attorneys in the country. And one of the arguments is that the only people that will benefit from this are Trulieve by increasing their business, and personal injury attorneys because of the increase in car accidents.
Look, John Morgan has been an incredible advocate for both recreational and medical marijuana in the state. I think his commitment to the issue goes far beyond his personal career. And I think as it relates to Trulieve, we have support from across the industry. I think right now we have more than a dozen of the medical marijuana companies operating right now in Florida who have been supportive of the initiative. But we also have support from everyday Floridians, and we have support from across the aisle. At the top, you mentioned President Trump, but we also have support from, their local state senator, Chev Jones. We have the Tallahassee mayor. There are an incredible number of elected officials also getting behind this because they know that it'll be better for their communities. They know that when we pass recreational marijuana, it gives Floridians access to something safe. Right now, what you can find on the illicit market is often tainted with fentanyl, other pesticides, and heavy metals. They know that this, we've talked about this, places an undue burden on the criminal justice system. And so, yes, the industry is supportive, but there are also a number of leaders across the state who know that this will be better for their communities. I will
say this, the marijuana of today is not the same thing that people my age in their mid-50s might remember from smoking in high school or earlier than that. It's very different. Somebody gave me some medicinal marijuana the other day to smell. I didn't use it. I smelled it. And I was like, wow, that smells pretty good. But that's one of the arguments. The state will stink like pot. I don't think that holds a whole lot of water because you smell cigarettes and pot all over the place. But the governor and the anti-pot people claim that the legislature, according to the language of this bill, will not be able to regulate the when and where and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I want to be very clear about this, that is an outright lie. The ballot language very clearly states that nothing in this amendment prohibits the legislature from enacting laws that are consistent with this amendment. That means that the legislature has the full ability to implement this program, right? Just like they did with the medical program. They will be able to say where tax dollars go. They will be able to say where people can and cannot consume marijuana. They will be able to implement the restrictions that make this work in the best way for Floridians.
Anything you want to, and as I mentioned, we're trying to get the anti-Amendment 3 people on the show a little bit later this week, and we'll give them the opportunity to respond to these very same questions. Anything that I haven't asked you that you want to make clear to our listeners about why you believe they should vote yes on 3?
Look, I think this is something that is beneficial for Floridians who do and who do not wish to consume marijuana, right? We have seen across the country when states legalize recreational marijuana that this benefits far beyond those who choose to use. Not only do all residents benefit from the tax revenue that comes in, but we also see teen use rates decline dramatically. We see, in fact, college admission rates increase. We see community safety get stronger. There is a strong correlation in legalizing recreational marijuana and violent crime going down. Intimate partner violence decreases. I mean, there are a number of benefits that go far beyond just who can and cannot consume marijuana. And so I'm hopeful that Floridians will take the time to read the ballot language, to understand that the legislature does have the ability to make this work for Florida, and that they will do their research. Go to our website, smartandsafeflorida.com. We have a lot of information myth busting some of what you will hear from the opposition, and we hope that everyone will show up to support Amendment 3 in November.
Well, and I don't want to make light of it, but the guy who won our fantasy football league last year, our defending champion, is texting me nonstop during this conversation with you, pointing out that he smokes every day and won the league last year. So we'll see how he does that season. Morgan, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Be well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's Morgan Hill, campaign manager for Smart and Safe Florida. Again, you can follow them on X at Smart and Safe FL. And happy to take your calls on that when we open up our phone lines